So welcome everyone once again. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Sunday from all over the country. And the way that we start our service, where we share a bit more about the teachings, is we read from this really lovely book called Rays of the One Light, Weekly Commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. So this week, our topic is called The Importance of Soul Receptivity, the higher self. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Chapter 1 of the Gospel of St. John states, can you spotlight it? It won't record otherwise probably. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name. This was a passage Paramhansa Yogananda often quoted to his disciples. Be in tune, he would tell them. Delusion can't touch you if you will keep in tune. A few of you will fall, he said once. But it needn't be if you stay in tune. Of a disciple who became highly advanced, even though she didn't meditate much, he said, she got there by attunement. To one who found meditation difficult, he said, I will meditate for you as long as you stay in tune. Truth is a state of consciousness, not a well-worded definition. It is in that consciousness, above all, that our lives are transformed. Therefore, the Bhagavad Gita says in the 10th chapter, to those who are ever attached to me and who worship me with love, I impart discernment, by means of which they attain me. Out of my love for them, I, the divine within them, set a light in them, the radiant lamp of wisdom, thereby dispelling the darkness of their ignorance. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Oh. Oh. Oh.
Welcome everyone. What a wonderful topic, the importance of soul receptivity. And I feel that Swami and Yogananda really address this in all that they do and share in either the autobiography of a yogi or the biography of Yogananda by Swami Kriyananda. They have so many lessons from these on the importance of that soul receptivity. And just to reiterate those words initially, it's such a powerful phrase that Paramahansa Yogananda often quoted to his disciples, that, but as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name. And Paramahansa often quoted to his disciples, be in tune. And he would tell them, delusion can't touch you if you will keep in tune. So I'm going to start by reading from Whispers from Eternity, and this book's got a really powerful, and for those that haven't read it, Paramahansa Yogananda wrote Whispers from Eternity, and there's a series of prayer demands and poems in these that we can help us with our attunement. And the best part of Yogananda's teachings and this line of gurus, and obviously many, is that we are given all these amazing tools to always be in tune. And a part of that was, whether we can meditate fulfillmently or we do savor or whatever we do, but there's always a way to stay in tune. Um, and these words, like an affirmation, are really important. So I'm going to read this poem that Yogananda wrote. And I was just listening recently to a story around Yogananda's attunement and how these whispers came about. And he was talking about attunement, and someone challenged him. And Yogananda then said, take down these words. And he wrote one of the poems or one of the um, prayer demands for Whispers from Eternity. And the interesting part about that prayer demand, it is through Google Scholar or Google Research or Google something or other, it actually is the most read and most affirmed um, readings from Whispers of Eternity. And he literally did it there and then on that second. So it's kind of a really um, powerful story of attunement, and so is this book. So each week when we do Sunday service, we read from Whispers of Eternity, and we try before we meditate to read from Whispers of Eternity. Um, the one that I've chosen today is always chosen was Wherever We Go, and it's just a short poem. So if you want to close your eyes and take deeply these words that are from attunement. It's relatively short, so just I'll read it twice. Wherever we go, whether in Himalayan caves or crowded subway, whether in the concrete jungle of modern life, or in a simple village in Hindustan, wherever we go, teach us to seek thee out. In all thy secret nooks, east, west, north, south, everywhere. And I'll just read that again. Whether in Himalayan caves or crowded subway, whether in the concrete jungle of modern life or in a simple village in Hindustan, wherever we go, teach us to seek thee out. In all thy secret nooks, east, west, north, south, everywhere. Mm. Shanti, Shanti. So the importance of soul receptivity, it seems quite uh, well spoken for, doesn't it, really? That receptivity on how to be there and where to be. And then later on in what was read talks about faith and the importance of faith and getting behind faith. And um, interesting enough, when we listen to soul, or whether it's soul receptivity or not soul receptivity, how do we kind of tell? And when you think about Christianity and where Christianity was, and then the rise of the Roman Empire, and then what Christians got put through, and essentially it was quite horrific when they were sort of rounded up. They either bowed down to pagans or the pagan gods, or they were fed to lions. And it's a pretty hard concept to grasp, isn't it, around what you would choose to do. Would you choose to just bow down to a pagan god, or would you be eaten by a lion? Kind of puts the whole line of faith in a pretty interesting light, doesn't it? And later on, I'm going to talk about, the importance of the science behind what Kriya is, or the truth behind what faith is. But when you think about that, how often in our life do we go about in our day and we're dragged into our emotions? We're dragged into our emotions, we're dragged into our thoughts. And if you're really fair dinkum, it's kind of an interesting thing to do. Next time you're taking a shower or next time you're sitting there, just try and take note of what your thoughts are saying and how serious they are, because they'll often flip sides. They're there really to protect us, but they'll often flip sides. You'll hear something and then your mind will start going, well, I don't really believe in that because that was blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, another thought comes in that says, well, there could be some truth behind that. And anyway, this chatter goes on constantly. And how often have you got yourself caught? How often have you heard something or read something either through work or through a conversation that you have, and all of a sudden your mind's taken over? And next thing you know, you're straight in arguing or straight in defending something or the other way around. You're actually saying, "Oh, I totally agree." And then later on you're sitting and you're thinking, "Well, I don't really agree with that. I didn't really think that." So the mind's kind of an interesting thing. And often it's pulled by that emotion that's going on. And even as I'm talking about this, it's kind of an interesting thing. And a lot of philosophy now and even psychology agree with this. We aren't our thoughts and we aren't our emotions. We are the observer of those things. So, really, what are we and what does it mean to be a soul? And through these teachings, it talks about the ocean and it talks about the waves and being caught up into the waves, but essentially, you're all a part of it. The other analogy is the flame. We're all this soul flame, and it's described as, the gas underneath the flame, and then we all have these individual colors and souls all these colorful attributes that come out of it, and we get caught up in those elements of the world. And so when we're looking at what is truth and what is faith, are we quite there yet? And, sometimes I like to take the big picture and, we hear all about this, where this little tiny speck on this mud ball of a planet spinning in this vast universe. And it's a really nice way to ground you into what goes on. And when you think about the universe, it's been evolving and manifesting over lifetimes. And yet this tiny speck comes into this world and we feel that we're in control of it. We take control of how we, actions and all the things that we do. And it's really important, and Yogananda talks about it, to understand that we do have these lifetimes and often we're reactive in it. And so I thought I'd read this time from not Autobiography of a Yogi, but Paramahansa Yogananda, a biography with personal reflections from Swami Kriyananda on Kriya Yoga. And it's kind of interesting because it talks about where we're at, what part of the relationship that we are, and the importance of it. So, the Kriya science, the path of Kriya Yoga, so this is the science that was handed down to super jet speed us to reunite, find truth behind everything. And it basically talks about that Kriya science begins with the physical symptoms accompanying emotional reactions. And those physical symptoms are exactly what we're talking about. It's the reaction behind what we do. And is it truth? And if it was truth, will we all not experience those things? And so the underlying truth is where we're going in, and you'll hear everyone talk about being centered, being grounded. And essentially all that is soul receptivity. It's about going back to the soul and opening yourself up to get rid of the delusion, get rid of the things that are in front of us that are causing harm. And it says most people have little or no control over their reactions, for they think these are being imposed on them from without. I'll say that again. Most people have little or no control over their reactions, for they think these are being imposed on them from without. So, an interesting fact, psychology says that 30 to 50% of people aren't aware of that reactive process in this world in any given day. That's kind of an interesting number, isn't it? So when you think about that, it means that you're not aware of it. You're so caught up in delusion that you're not aware that this process is taking place. this up and down process, this um, process of being drawn into the delusion. And it's kind of interesting, though, that most people that are actually here are aware of that. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. They want out of the delusion. They want out of the suffering. They want out of that outward process, the up and down of the physical symptoms accompanying emotional reaction. So, when our energy is centered primarily in the higher centers of the spine, we are in a state of bliss. When it is centered at the base of the spine, we suffer in mental darkness. And we can tell that. Yogananda talked about it, Swami Kriyananda talked about it. We have truth behind everything we're talking about. When we are sad, no one looks like this. When we're sad, we round and we come down the spine. We're always in that downward motion. And it kind of answers the often um, the the delusion of this heaven and hell, or and it answers the truth behind Satan and the satanic pull. So we're in this world, and if we go back to that, for they think these are being imposed on them from without. So any pull from without or any delusion from without is really a satanic pull. So that's that, talking about the downward pull. Anything that is upward and uplifting is bringing us centered inward and upwards towards the divine, towards the answer to all, that Christ consciousness, that upliftment, that realization behind being centered here. It's an upward pull. And what that tells us always, regardless of where they are, and Yogananda talked about the fact that we have this journey and it's all relative. So you could have, and I think the discussion was around whether you could be the worst, considered the worst person in the world. You could have murdered, you could have done all these things, you might be backwards. But if your journey is upward, you're moving upward from that state. It's no different from the journey from a saint that falls. It's all relative. You're all on this journey of up and down the spine, and we want that's a satanic pull. So you could be a saintly person that's very realized, and it's spoken about in the levels of reaching samadhi. It talks about there is one that still is held on by that ego, still held on to the delusion of thought and emotion and being brought back into that world. And many, many have fallen from those great heights. So Yogananda says that a saint is a sinner that never gave up. Don't worship your sins. And that is why, because every time we put energy into something from that base of the spine, we're going to be drawn down. There's that satanic pull that is constantly drawing us down. And so we need to make a choice in daily activity of always giving that out, getting out of that delusion, getting out of that downward pull, down and out to inward and upward, being that centered. And the best part about it, it brings us into the magnetism of always attuning to these great masters. It's such a powerful thing to know and to re-establish those words. Delusion can't touch you if you keep in tune. A few of you will fall, he said, but it needn't be if you would stay in tune. Of a disciple who became highly advanced, even though she didn't meditate much, he said she got there by attunement. That's that ability to step out of the way, understand that constantly everything that we do in our world, that's why the affirmation this week is on work. That work could be to bring money in to support your dharma of family or friends or wherever you want to be. It could be, but it's bringing that attunement behind all that we do, raising the energy, not lowering us. And we constantly do it. How often do we do that in every day? I was listening to a wonderful talk by Asha, and she was talking about how even within Ananda, there's people that we're not going to get along with. Our worldliness is not going to attune with their worldliness. We're going to find them annoying. We're going to find them not um, relatable to what we are. And Swami would always relate that in a way that's their karma, that's their past, that's who they are, but that's not their soul. And being centered shows us that we can go beyond that. It's about being relatable to this soul, which is open and always attuned to the great masters. We can get through all these hurdles, these humps of daily life, and we can see through the delusion that everyone else is involved in. And the greater we work on those and work on in the moment, that means that we're not involved in our thought, we're not involved in our emotions. Being there in that moment allows us to always be attuned to the masters and what's in life. It's the surrendering to their will, not our will. It's letting go of that tiny speck on this mud ball of a planet and saying, you know what? I've tried probably many, 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 many lifetimes to be in control, and it's not working. It's about that. It's about giving up that control and surrendering everything. I challenge you guys for a day, for a week. You'll get into the habit of it, but every day recognizing it by saying, you know what? That's not my thought. I'm not my thought. I'm watching that thought. That's not my emotion, or my body's feeling that emotion, but that's not me. And see how your day just changes with that as you go about what you do, surrendering. And what it does is give you great peace because trying to have those thoughts, trying to address those emotions that you'll recognize is solely done out of fear. And if you're making judgment out of fear because that thing is what's doing this to me, or that my thoughts are what are creating this because I need to be in control, all of a sudden, if you lose control, it creates fear, and then fear becomes the response to whatever we have. But there is only one true language of great will that God wants, and that is your love. That's it. But you can't, you can overcome the fear with great love. And you can do that by letting go of this control, letting go of the reactive process through thought and through emotion and that attunement. And I'm going to finish this morning. And for those, I won't read the whole thing because it's quite lengthy, but Yogananda read or wrote Samadhi, and it talks about Samadhi in um, great detail. It's such a beautiful and powerful thing, and Yogananda and Swami Kriyananda all said that we should really attune to this daily, and we should try and memorize it and get to that point. I'm just going to read a section of it that relates today. And it starts with this: into a vast ocean of blood of my own one being, smouldering joy, often puffed by meditation, blinding my tearful eyes, burst into immortal flames of bliss, consumed my tears, my frame, my all. Thou art I am thou, knowing, knower, known as one. Just read that last part again. Thou art I am thou, knowing, knower, known as one. And those words are that true soul connection to the infinite and the goal of what this week's topic's all about. Joy to you. I'm going to share a beautiful